Last night, on behalf of the entire RFL team, I accepted RNN's first ever New York Press Club Award for Best News Special. It was from our report that we called Triangle Shirtwaist Fire: Lessons from the Ashes. In it, we retold the story of what remains New York City's second deadliest workplace tragedy of all time, behind only the 9/11 attacks. It was a fire that drew attention to and led to major changes in workplace safety and labor laws. It also led to the rise of the modern labor union. The entire special can be found at our website and our Facebook page. But for now, just a few minutes of Triangle Shirtwaist Fire: Lessons from the Ashes.
Yetta Berger, 18.
Annie Labette, 16.
The sheer terror these women must have been facing to choose between burning to death in a building with no protection, no one to help them or save them, or to jump out the window, knowing, because others had jumped before them, that that was it.
Hundreds of workers crammed into tiny rooms, sewing machines from wall to wall with little space to move, snips of fabric left everywhere, and employees who would work for pennies. Sometime around 4:40 or 4:45, someone dropped a lit cigarette or match on the 8th floor of the Ash building, home to the Triangle Company. It quickly spread to one of the many scrap bins on the factory floor. The workers retreated to an emergency stairwell. It was locked. One of the windows had a fire escape, but it didn't reach the ground, nor could it handle the heat or the crisis. The part of the fire escape that did not collapse withered, dropping workers 9 floors to the ground. Fire trucks arrived just 5 minutes after the inferno was reported. But as the workers trapped on 9 soon realized, those trucks had a fatal flaw. Their ladders only reached floor 6, 30 feet short. So the workers began to jump. Just 18 minutes after it was sparked, the fire was put out. But in that 18 minutes, 53 workers either jumped or fell from the windows. 19 jumped into empty elevator shafts and died. More than 20 slipped from the crippled fire escape. Another 50 or more died on the factory floor. In all, 146 people died. 123 were women. About half of those were teenagers.
This is the 9th floor of NYU's Brown Building. 100 years ago, it was the Ash Building, and this was the deadliest location within the Triangle fire itself. To see the improvements in safety conditions and code changes since that fire, a direct result of that fire, all you have to do is look around, and you don't have to look too far. You've got lighted emergency exit signs that are well posted, fire extinguishers placed throughout the building to help fight a fire as early as possible, sprinklers and detectors that pop from the ceiling, again to alert people as early as possible and begin the process of saving lives. You've also got emergency warning lights guiding people towards the doors, fire alarms that we take for granted connected both to the fire department and also to let other people know about the danger, and the emergency exit that opens out. 100 years ago, the doors to the Ash Building, they opened in, and as crowds tried to evacuate, they wound up trapped inside. Are there still lessons in your mind that need to be learned and heeded as a result of what happened here?
There certainly are, and in a way it's unfortunate, but that there are, because what really the Triangle Fire did was it brought to the attention of New Yorkers terrible working conditions.
A few quick thank yous that I have to get out here. First up to photographer Mike Bruno, who was with me during every step of the special, to our director Ralph Kelberdale, producer Elise Siener, and of course to Richard French. Also a special shout out to our editing staff. It is not easy turning 100-year-old photographs into compelling television. Amy Hoodie Green, Amy Horowitz, and Ashley Giddix, thank you all so much. All of this, which I was lucky enough to pick up for the station last night, that's all of you contributing to this. But one of the main reasons for spotlighting the Triangle Fire was its contribution to the rise of labor unions. Unions, of course, are under attack like never before. We saw that in Wisconsin's recall election last week. The last soundbite of the piece was from a union leader talking about the role of unions today. And so my question for the panel is, do unions have a place in modern America? It certainly seems like they're being rolled back wherever it's possible, Jessica.
Well, I think they do certainly have a place, and their origin was certainly appropriate at the time. But you have a situation now where they're largely controlling government, and the costs have become so unsustainable. You saw even, there was a story in today's New York Post that 1 in every 10 police and firefighters are retiring with a $100,000 pension or more. And those kind of costs just are not sustainable.
Is that the union's fault, or is that the government's fault for, I mean, it takes two to tango, and they strike the deal.
Of course, it's their job job I don't blame them specifically, their job is to advocate for their members, but they've become so powerful and have such a huge influence on the system now that it's very difficult to roll back any of these provisions, and the costs are just not sustainable.
One of my biggest concerns with unions, I think unions have done a terrible job explaining to people how they help individual workers, how other workers who aren't in unionized businesses now might benefit from it. I also wanted the overall impact on the on our society. If we can throw up E6 real quickly, it's unions and the middle class. It shows the proportion of people who are in union jobs, which is in the red on your screen, versus the middle class's share of income, which is in blue on your screen. Those two lines are almost identical. When union membership numbers drop, middle class earnings drop. When it rises, middle class earnings rise. That's just the economic argument, but Brad?
Yeah, there's no question unions are necessary, and they can be very useful, and I believe there's a significant role for them to play in the American, in the public sector and private sector. However, there are some contractual terms that need to be adjusted and tweaked for the modern day era to be more reflective of what's going on out in the real world. As a matter of fact, I mean, for instance, I would say something like teachers, for instance. I think they're fighting for the wrong things. Teachers should be paid, not more, a lot more, and based on merit, of course. But I think some of the other things, the legacy costs that exist with some of that union membership, like the pensions, which aren't realistic, they're not in the private sector anymore, and some of these other, medical benefits that just go on forever, take your whole family along, all these different things. Those things need to be adjusted. And I know that the unions are being very difficult in making those changes, but I think over time, it can change, and the unions will have a really solid place here in America.
I know I've been a union member in jobs past. Is anybody at the table? Dom, were you ever a union member?
In performing unions, yes, like SAG and so on, and for movies and stuff like that. But it's, if you just listen to, I mean, first of all, what happened in Wisconsin, in my opinion, was we saw a lot of money come into that race, and it was more a reflection of not necessarily a blowback against unions, but in terms of the voters of that state saying that they didn't feel that rose to the level to recall the governor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's two big issues there, but different issues. But if you listen to my Republican friends, they will tell you that, I mean, to listen to them, that union workers are almost the worst people in the world. They sit around with these fat cat jobs earning $200,000 a year, and that's just not the case. That's not the case for most members of the union, but I do agree there needs to be some adjustments.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to lighten things up with a little bit of sports with some local flavor. That's next. Stay with us.